Then what I'll do is I'll move my head back to about 3 to 5 inches, and what you'll see is you'll see two balls of light, and you'll see them separated. And this is kind of what we're after. We're kind of after getting two individual images, a left eye and a right eye. So then that way we can let our brain physically see discrepancy between the two, whether it's the left to the right, or whether we're looking at a up and down. But at this time, what we're really looking for is this up and down. And so I'm looking far away, getting the two images, and then I'm looking at the horizontal line on my graph. And if the horizontal line is shifted, what should happen is across the distance between the two circles of light, they should intersect. That horizontal line should connect to the other horizontal line from the right eye to the left eye image. If they don't, if you are seeing something like this, there's a problem. It needs to be sent in. The only way that you're going to be able to see that effect is when you keep your eyes further away. And so you're going to have to train yourself to see how far away you have to look to get those two individual images. This is also the time where you're going to see the skewed misalignment. And the way that this will look to you when you separate the images is sometimes it's really hard to tell because the centers might look like they're okay. So what I do is I'll separate the two images and then I kind of tilt and peer in both eyepieces to the left side of the field of view and to the right side of the field of view. If in the center of your field of view it looks like it's aligned, but when you get to the outer edges of your field of view it's misaligned, then it's typically that it's skewed. Sometimes it's really clear. When you look through there, it'll be real significant and you'll say, this is a skewed binocular. This will be the hardest thing for you to tell. But you just want to get in the habit of looking from far away, tipping to the left, looking through the keyholes of each eyepiece, and watching the horizontal line across that entire field of view. What should happen is those lines should stay parallel the entire time. If you're seeing something like this, then you know that you're having a skew. So if they're crossing paths at some point, that's a skew problem. Or if you just look in there and it's immediate, like the right eye is messed up, then you'll know. Once again, another way to just double check is just inspect the binocular. Look at it, see if anything looks like it's been hit. On the 0 to 180s, make sure that there's no major dents. If there's dents and you're seeing some sort of discrepancy in the optics, then it's likely that there's a problem. If you're having trouble and you're not sure, but you think there's a problem, trust your instincts. Send the binocular in and have the service team double check it. And this allows you to kind of create a standard in your own head as to what's acceptable and what's not. Because you're going to get feedback from the office. It's like, yes, this was skewed and needs to be replaced and so on and so forth. So it's a way to train yourself. So I do that on every single binocular. The other thing that can happen with 3150s or just the light alignment of a microscope, so if we're talking about, say, an eye scope, this happens often. So what I'll do is I'm going to light up real quick. And we'll look at the screen right now. So right now, if we look at this monitor, what I see in the binoculars is perfectly aligned. What I'm seeing on the camera is a little bit shifted. The camera is usually going to be the most reliable because of the way that this system aligns. And it's the camera, especially on the newer units, it's very embedded on the inside of the head. So the camera is usually a pretty good indicator, especially if it's internal, if it's an integrated camera system, that that's right and this is wrong. So on a 30 to 150, once again, there's an internal mirror on the inside of these rubber bellows. If this gets bumped really hard, the internal mirror will shift. And when it does that, when you look from the main surgeon's binocular and you align your light on your graph to where the circles are lined up, but you're seeing a discrepancy, say when you look on the 0 to 180 side, the rear PA side, or the side PA side, if there's any sort of discrepancy, then it's a matter of figuring out where does it exist. and the camera is a reliable way for you to test that. So what I typically will do is, if it's off, if I've just aligned the system to this binocular, but then these are off, and that's off, then that tells me that most likely the main binocular is off. But then what I'll do is I'll come to the rear, and I'll align the optics to the rear. If this is in alignment with this, and everything is good, then that tells you that the mirror on this binocular is off. If it's still a question, there's some discrepancy between these two, then I use this, or I'll even take this one off, I'll put it in the main surgeon's spot, take the main surgeon's off, and then I'll rely on this binocular to tell me, am I seeing the same thing when I've switched binoculars? If I'm seeing the same thing when I've switched binoculars, then it's possible we have something internal to the head that's off. If you're seeing a consistent pattern of it being off, no matter which binoculars you switch, then typically it's going to be the head that's the problem. But what we're trying to do is isolate where the problem exists. And the only way to do that is to test here, align the system to the main binocular, and then align the system to the rear binocular, and using the video camera as kind of a reference point. So if you can zero in on one of them, then you know that that one's off. Typically, if the mirror on the 3150 is off, it's going to be way off. What it's going to look like is, if I align the light right now, I'm trying to get this so you can see. So if I align the light to the graph, to where the light and the graph, when I'm just glancing at it, are perfectly aligned. And then I look at the binoculars, inside the binoculars, and the image is completely shifted. That means the binocular is bad. Another way to check this is if we reduce the diameter of the iris to its smallest point, and seeing where the light is actually located in relation to the optical alignment. So if I look through the optics, and I've centered up optically, but my light is shifted way down or way up, it's typically the binocular. It's not the light system. It's almost never the light system. So that's another good way of testing whether or not the binocular is off. So just remembering that. So your light alignment is typically going to be related to a binocular problem. So we have misalignments. There's 3 different kinds. There's the up-down, left-right, and then skewed. Up-down and the left-right, I'm checking with the graph. I said that wrong. Up-down, and the skew, I'm checking with the graph. The left to right, I'm checking with my business card, shifting the letter to the edge of the field of view and checking left eye individually from right eye and seeing if that image is shifting. The light alignment, we're checking by reducing the iris if you have that capability. But if you don't have that capability, I'm aligning the system, just glancing down at it, to my graph to make sure that the light is actually lined up with the graph as best as I can. And then I'll look through the optics to see if they're the same. If I see that there's a discrepancy, then it's typically the binocular. In the case of ophthalmology scopes, it is possible for the light alignment to be off. So in that instance, we'll come back to that at a later time. Right now I've checked all the binoculars. Everything seems to be kosher with the exception of this one. So I'll send this one in and get it repaired. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the optics. So I'm running the mag, making sure the magnification is changing. I'll actually look inside the optics while I'm doing this. Because if the zoom pod fails, what's going to happen is you're going to be running that zoom and it's just going to blank out